I've always equated feelings with getting caught. They both get in the way of my money. Unfortunately, not everyone is as committed to their work as I am. An old associate of mine, Basso the boxman, wants to marry Lady Rumford's chambermaid, Genevieve, and live happily ever after. Guess prison life spoiled his taste for thievery. Too bad for Basso that Lady Rumford has other plans. Marriage would void Genevieve's indentured service contract, so Rumford is keeping her confined in the estate with the rest of her worldly possessions. Basso has asked for my assistance on getting her out, since infiltration is my specialty. I make it a policy never to take a job so sentimental, but the Rumford Manor could be a lucrative opportunity for a man like me. It would also mean that Basso would owe me a favor, and in this line of work you can never have too many of those. I'll sneak in after dark and clear a path for Basso so he can rescue his damsel in distress. Along the way, I'll pick up a few souvenirs for the local pawn shops. That should make all this aggravation worthwhile. Otherwise, I'll make Basso wish he was still rotting in Crag's Cleft. This proves it. Going legit is more trouble than it's worth.
All right, so how's that for an introduction? So I'm going to be playing on Expert. There's all kinds of objectives. Something I'm going to show is one of the differences between difficulties is the amount of objectives you get and how strict they are. So I'll be clicking through to show what the difference is. Alright, before most missions there's a screen where you buy equipment, but this one they skip it for the first one.
Run the lock on the side door for you, Garrett. It's the only good way in.
Really, the only way you can get in. So here's the map. That red line shows the path that the AI, Basso here, is going to take to reach Genevieve. It's pretty helpful, so then you know what you need to clear out. Maps in this are nice and detailed. So maybe you can see what's going on there. So it's nighttime, nice moon, nice sky. So this game came out in 2000. It's the sequel to Thief the Dark Project, which came out in 1998, which basically invented first-person stealth.
Good thing the butler's out for the night. He left his lights on.
So you can see me grabbing some coins. This game's called Thief. That door is locked. There's a key. And I'm trying to decide which way I want to go first. You can hear a guard muttering to himself. Alright, so I'm going to put this torch out, but first I'll show you why I want to do that. There's a guard there. Garrett is invisible in the dark.
Damn torches, always sputtering out.
Unless they're...
Well, don't just make tap over it. Light it up.
I lost my tinderbox. Oh, why don't you do it?
I ain't the one that's complaining, am I now?
Huh.
Right, so the first thief kind of explains how it happens, why Garrett can blend into the shadows so well. It's kind of an almost supernatural thing. And it works. It's a good mechanic for stealth. A lot of games do line of sight, which doesn't always work as well in first person. And the other thing they do is sound. As you can hear, sound is really important to this. The ambient sound is amazing, but it's more important than that too. It's very important to the game mechanics. You can hear I'm listening through the door. That's how you know where guards are before you see them in this game. And the sound, it propagates, it travels and bounces off walls. The engine simulates it. And it works perfectly. Or at least, best I've ever seen it. Alright, so I have my blackjack. That's for knocking people out. Once they're knocked out, they stay knocked out. You just gotta make sure to move the bodies so no one finds them. Alright. Only those two gold wine bottles are loot. That's why I only picked those up. The rest are just regular. If you pick them up, you can throw them. Which is not something I do a lot. You can throw objects in this game to distract guards. Alright, so I have a little bit of foreknowledge about this level. I try not to rely on it too much for this playthrough, but I happen to know that this guy is really a pain. And the best way to deal with him is to just come up through the dumbwaiter. So every surface that you walk on makes a different level of noise. And it depends too on the speed that you travel. And that's a big factor in avoiding getting caught. It's not as strict as you might at first think. You can sprint through a lot of the game, which I did not know. Like, probably the first 10 years or more than that even that I've been playing this. So I'm listening. I know there's a guy there. And I'm just gonna hide here. And here we go. So you can only blackjack guards if they're not aware of you. Otherwise, it'll just do a small amount of damage. But there is a way. I'm actually kind of lying. You can sometimes blackjack them if they're aware of you and you're standing in shadow and dancing around them and you get them in the back of the head, but it's really unpredictable. It's almost a quirk more than anything else, and you can never rely on it. So, I'm sorry, I didn't leave that on the screen as long as I probably should have. I'm still kind of getting the hang of that. So, if you've not played the first Thief, or even if you have, I'd recommend...
Well, that's her door. I guess Basso can open it.
I would
He's
recommend...
not much of a sneak, but he can sure handle a lock.
Sorry, Garrett, not trying to step on your lines here. I'd recommend going up and looking up the cutscenes. It's a good story. It's not a great story, but the best thing about the stories in these games is the way they're told. Now, Thief is a really good game. I'm not skipping it because I don't like it or anything. There's other reasons I'm doing this first, and maybe I'll get into those later. I just love the ambient noise in this game and the atmosphere. The graphics aren't the strong suit in this game, and I personally think they're pretty good. But the noise helps them a lot. It's hard to put into words. It makes you feel like you're there more than games that look better but aren't they don't really do as much with the sound. All right. So this game picks up I want to say it's like a year after the first thief. Things have changed in the town. And we see a hint of that in that note earlier that I read about how things aren't like the good old days.
Who's there?
Over that way.
The Thief games are set in a place called the City, and it's not really known if that's the actual name or if it's just what everyone calls it because it's the only important thing to them. It doesn't really matter. But
Well, I must have been imagining things.
there's not a strong central presence, I guess, or law, or at least there didn't used to be. There's hints that there's some kind of war going on, and the Baron has been away, and so there's a power vacuum that left some different factions to take control. All right, so I'm going to use this bird call to signal the guy, and he's going to run through and get Genevieve. Like, I could stick behind him and watch him, but it's not that interesting, honestly. All right, so let's go upstairs. I have to just dig through my pockets for the right key. And I hear someone.
Hello? Anyone there?
That was a little bit lucky. So that thing in the middle of the bottom of the screen is called your light gem. It kind of shows you how much light you're in, which you need to know, because you can't always tell for sure just by looking. I'm just trying to play around with the physics a little, see if I can knock this guy down the stairs by jumping on him. Alright, that guy's over there, so I'll just look at this room. Some paintings and furniture, but all I'm really into is the loot. So that light gem was black in the middle. Now it's not, of course, but that means you're invisible, no one can see you. Unless you've alerted them and they're like in combat mode, then they can find you. So it's kind of like if they're not that alert, they don't know you're there. But if they're trying really hard, then they can see you, if they're really paying attention. Alright, so just checking that if any of these are loot. There's a cup up there. It's a little hard to see. It's easier to see if you turn the light off, actually. And I think there's a secret in one of these rooms, but I don't find it in this playthrough. So I started talking about factions. It's a kind of a classic situation. There's chaos and there's order, law. So the Hammerites, they are, I guess, the law and order. They're kind of a pastiche of the Catholic Church, who worship the master builder. Their symbol is a hammer. And in the first game, you find out like they lock people up. They have their own prisons. And one of the second mission in that game, you're breaking into it, Craigscliff prison. And if you're playing on expert, one of the objectives is to break out Basso the Boxman, who is the guy in this mission that is rescuing Genevieve. So this level has some callbacks to the first game. The other faction, the other big one, well, I should say one of the other two big ones, is the Pagans. And they're like chaos, they're nature themed, they're sort of the villains in the first game. And then there's the Keepers, which is kind of all about neutrality and balance. Alright, this room is where that dumb leader was. So he's got kind of a weird patrol path. It's hard to sneak up on him. I'd have to like mess around with throwing cups. I'm just testing out to see if I can hear the footsteps. So the keepers are... In the first game, you find out Garrett was a keeper. Like, they tell you that early. Here's me grabbing a secret up here. And they're good at staying hidden, so... The beginning of the first game, Garrett sees a keeper and tries to pickpocket him. He's just a kid who's a pickpocket. And the keeper is like, whoa, not everyone can see someone like me. You got talent. Come and I'll teach you stuff. So he goes with them for a while and they teach him all kinds of stuff about being hidden. And then he leaves them and he uses those abilities to be the best thief ever. Or at least a really good one who's supernaturally good. I like in this mission, actually, they say that Garrett's not the best lockpick. This other guy, Basso, kind of implies that he's better at it. So this area gives me a little bit of trouble. Fortunately...
What's going on over there?
Oh. See, they detected me.
Come on, coward. Face me like a bitch.
So that's my flash bomb. It's basically a get-out-of-jail-free card.
Don't make me come find you.
I blinded myself because I suck, but it blinds them too. And you can blackjack them, which is really nice. But you can also run away. That seems to be more the intended uses in Thief 3. And I want to say the new one, which isn't really part of the series. But I want to say in both of those, the flashback, like you could just run away, you couldn't blackjack them. Alright, so out here, the ground down there, you'll hear, it's louder. That's the tile type surfaces. It's one of the two loudest surfaces in the game. Metal's the only one that's as loud. I think they're as loud as each other. So I can run across the grass, but if I get any closer and even crouch walk, he's gonna hear me. So this is actually a little tricky. I'm not sure if I'm gonna succeed with this. Trying to find the right time, and here I just go for it. And so that was right in the window of grace that they give you after being found. You can blackjack them still. So you can eat the food you pick up. It restores health. I'm not exactly sure the amount. So I've never left this level through that door before, but I'm gonna try it. I usually clear the top out and the bottom, and then I go and signal Basso, and I run through with him while he grabs Genevieve, and I leave with him. But he's left with her already. So if I leave, this mission will end. It'll be a success, I believe. I think I have the other objectives. I could be wrong, actually. I might not have the loot one yet. But I don't want to do that. I want to find everything. Or at least as much as I can. This isn't a run where I'm going to find all the loot. And that's kind of a conscious choice. I want this to be kind of improvised and loose. I don't want to follow any guide to where all the loot is. So, and some of it's really hard to find on your own. So these games, there's a lot of waiting around sometimes for guards. I don't know if you can hear yet, but there's one upstairs. So I'm just speeding this up right here. That's why it's getting all strange. Gonna let him come down so I can wait for him, but you don't have to.
Oh no!
Odd noise. I just think I think there's a secret in one of these rooms. I don't find it though, but you can see I'm looking pretty carefully for something. I'm not gonna find it though. So in this game there's also a city watch. I don't remember if they were in there too, but they can be considered sort of another faction. They're a big part of this game. Alright, there's a hidden switch. So, that completes my objective to get at least 200 worth of loot in gems. Because that tiara has gems in it. Alright, I've got the key. I'm gonna head out. My work here is done. So, most of the levels are bigger. This might be the smallest of the first two of the levels of the first two Thief games. It doesn't really represent the game too well, but it's not a bad level. I mean, it's just... it's kind of insubstantial compared to the rest. So... I'll show my stats here. If an enemy finds a body, if a guard finds a body, it'll tell you, but I guess that didn't happen here. I only found 1 out of 3 secrets. I think I actually know where one of the ones I missed is. I forgot about it on this playthrough. But anyway, thanks for watching. The next one I think will be more interesting, so I hope you keep going. Farewell.